conduct a roll call.
Thank you. Yes. Director Moore?
Can you turn on your mic, please?
Yes, it is. Young is absent. We have 4 of 5. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any board member requests for remote participation at this time?
No, none.
Okay. And would Director Bennett please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for our invocation this evening, we have Pastor Marlon Jackson. Pastor, could you please lead us?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Pastor.
Yes. Good evening to the board of directors and board secretary. So let us pray. Lord, we offer this prayer for the West Valley Water District board of directors as they meet to discuss the business of the customers they serve. Give them wisdom as they perform the work they were elected to do. Bless them now, continually, and every time they meet. We thank you for these men and women who serve the communities. We thank you. In our Lord's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, this time I'd like to open up to public comments in regards to closed session. Are there any?
We haven't received any. I can read this script real quick.
Sure.
Members of the public may participate and give public comment in one of 4 ways: in person at West Valley Water District, via telephone by calling 888-473-4499 with access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom with access code 840-293-7790, or via email to administration@wvwd.org. We've received no requests in person or via email, and none on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to convene to closed session. Am I missing anything?
No, I would just mention that at this point, we go into closed session on items 1 and 2 under 54956.9, receipt of claim, as well as paragraph 1 of subdivision D for an existing litigation. So we recommend going to closed session on items 1 and 2 at this time.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we'll now reconvene into open session. Mr. Ferrer, will you please report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice President. The board met in closed session on item 1 regarding receipt of claim from Dale Eakins on a motion by Director Garcia, second by Director Moore, and a vote of 4-0 with 1 absent. The board take action to reject the claim and to instruct the appropriate notice to be sent. On item 2, there was no reportable action. That was the end of the closed sessions.
And thank you. At this point, is there anyone who would like to make a motion? Well, we have to adopt adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
There's a first. I have a second.
I'll second.
And Madam Secretary, can you call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Garcia,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins.
Yes.
That passes 4-0-1. Thank you.
And, all right. And further, we're now open for public comment period. Madam Board Secretary, will you please read the meeting protocol information?
Yes, thank you. Members of the public may participate and give public comment in one of 4 ways: in person at West Valley Water District, via telephone by calling 888-475-4499 with access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom with access code 840-293-7790, or via email to administration@wvwd.org.
And have there been any requests received at this time?
None via Zoom. We do have one in person.
No one is?
Director Velasquez from Valley Water, and none via Zoom or email, sorry.
And welcome aboard, Director Velasquez. Hello.
Good evening, Vice President, members of the board. I'm very happy to be here this evening. I'm just here to invite board staff to San Bernardino Valley's upcoming events. We have a foundation summit at our headquarters April 10th and 11th to show all the great projects that Valley District is working on. I think it's a great event. I hope you guys will participate. You have a flyer in front of you, I believe. And again, the spaces are being limited, but I hope that you guys would register and participate. And this is an invitation to board, staff, and public as well.
Thank you.
That completes.
I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Yep.
I'm here to answer any questions if you have
Does
any.
anyone at this time have any questions?
I'll just say 5 of us attended last year's fantastic event. Linda, Rocky, myself, and then Vice President and Director Moore attended. Really a fantastic event. I really recommend it to our newest board member and other board members that have not attended this program yet.
Yeah, I would also say that I was extremely impressed. We went to the top of the I didn't realize how high the dam was. Going
Was it Seven
Corridor?
Oaks or
Yeah. All those switchbacks, and I remember taking a picture, and it felt like a little ant.
yes,
Yeah.
7 Oaks?
Yes.
7 Oaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the weather changed from starting from the bottom to getting the top. It was actually quite
It
wet.
did.
Well done. And you guys are excellent hosts.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
are.
Thank you. You.
Good to see you. And okay, so that's the one we had received. And anything further?
No further requests.
Okay. So now we have presentations. We have a Romer expansion project update from Rocky.
Thank you, Vice President, members of the board, members of staff, and public. Today we wanted to provide a presentation. Can we get the PowerPoint up? Somebody? Can we get the PowerPoint up? We wanted to provide an update of the construction activities that were going on at Romer, just to keep you guys up to date. And then I also wanted to take an opportunity to talk about, instead of saying rubber hits the road, water hits the pipes, when we talk about strategic plans and how those goals that you guys help develop come to fruition in projects like this. So throughout the PowerPoint slide, there's going to be a couple of points where I highlight one of our strategic goals and how these pieces of equipment help us meet those goals. And screwed that up already. Here we go. So just A quick overview of the project benefits. The very big important one, the whole reason for doing the project was we're going to increase our water production capacity at Romer by 7.2 million gallons per day. And that mountaintop with that flag on the top, that's my indication that we're going over a strategic goal there. And that's a real clear one in our strategic goal of to manage and deliver safe, reliable, sustainable water supply by increasing our system capacity for anticipated growth and providing effective source water treatment. That's the whole point of our Romer treatment expansion. The next goal there was to improve our water supply resiliency. This project helps to improve our ability to treat state water project water. That resiliency in times of drought provides an external water supply to our region. So this expansion really increases our resiliency to drought conditions. And especially when we're looking at a region, where do we put water when we're at low allocation years? Districts who have invested in surface water treatment projects or imported water treatment projects kind of get first priority for that water as opposed to people putting that water in the ground and saving it for later. So this investment kind of puts us to the front of the line when we're talking for imported water needs when the percentages and allocations are scarce. And so this increases our operational efficiency, resiliency, and reliability. That's one of our strategic goals. The next one is to improve our electrical efficiency. There's several components to this project that helps us do that by installing variable frequency drives, 8 pulse and 16 pulse variable frequency drives, providing new UV treatment disinfection vessels. Those things have all improved since the original Romer was constructed. Those things are much more energy efficient and help us to reduce our energy costs when we're treating this water. So that's meets or helps to meet one of our strategic goals of studying feasibility of sustainable energy alternatives. Instead of producing energy, we're reducing energy. I think that's a much better way to go. And then the final one there is implement a modern control system. And one of the big goals of this project was to go away from a proprietary control system that was hard to manage and hard to maintain and go to a system that's more modern and easier to maintain. And that follows in line with our strategic goal of being an exemplary employer by upgrading and modernizing our facilities. And the next slide here, we're talking some of the schedule items. So currently we're doing some construction work, but a lot of the work is focused on control systems loop testing and troubleshooting. We're doing that now, and it sort of happens through the rest of the project, but most of it's going to be happening through May. The operations building, which is something we're all excited about seeing complete, is probably going to be completed in April, and that's going to be when we're going to be able to start moving in our office furniture and start utilizing that space. And one of the very long lead items from the very start of this project was MCCs, motor control centers. And that should be delivered in June of this year. And once that gets in place, it's a mad rush to hook up all the equipment that needs to hook up to that motor control center, get the control systems working, and then meet our project deadlines for commissioning. And then all through May through August, we're going to be doing commissioning and startup activities on each of the process trains. And the rest of this PowerPoint presentation is going to be pictures of construction activities to share what's going on. So the construction progress on the operations building, as of 2 weeks ago, it looked like a lot of these pictures. And so you can see the new filter building 2 is right here on the left side. The filters are inside each of these roll-up doors, and then this is kind of the admin space, office space, and also the conference room area that we're going to have. This is the frontage as it looked 2 weeks ago. Since then, we've added some shade structures over the windows and filled in this hole out in front a little bit. See a question?
Is that the educational room?
The education room is right here. Yeah, and it's right here on the side of the building.
So I think you can add that to an accomplishment on the first page.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
Yeah, but part of our community engagement strategic goals is going to help to be fulfilled by that education room. Then you can see paint coming on the walls. That's an exciting time. And you can see the glazing work inside here and on the front edge. The building's really coming together.
I don't see pink. Is that pink?
That's an accent color.
I see blue.
So what you can see here in this picture aligns with our strategic goals is being an exemplary employer by upgrading and modernizing our facilities. The office space that's going to be going into this building is much more modern compared to what our operators have today. They're kind of putting laptops on top of counters, on top of microwaves and things like that. This new building is a dedicated space for them to have a modern, efficient workspace. And then to Director Garcia's point, we have a strategic goal to develop and grow effective communication and advocacy practices and expand our education outreach programs. So that education space is going to be a space that we can use to host different workshops and engage with the public. And then there's a lot of piping that's going on with this project, piping modifications, piping tie-ins, new valves, new overhead pipe, new underground pipe. And I just have a couple pictures here. This is a pneumatic air actuator that's going to control the flow of water into the filtration units. This is overhead piping that's going to take the influent flow to the filters from filter building 1 on this side of the wall to filter building 2 on this side of the wall. And then this is a tie-in of that same line to the existing piping. And you can see that with how big this piping is, how hard of a construction effort that is. And all the piping around the treatment plant, I think, can generally be categorized into one of our strategic goals of upgrading and modernizing our facilities, and that's what you see going on in those pictures here. The digital control system is a huge upgrade to Romer, and this is a representative picture of a much larger activity. This is impacting every treatment process at Romer, but ultimately what you see are these control cabinets that are closed, and they call it a human machine interface, a HMI screen, that the operators will interact with to control the various pieces of equipment and input set points. When you open up that cabinet, you see what's going on here. And during commissioning activities, they have a lot of these temporary wires to create signals, bypass different relays and things like that. But I think this picture really represents a lot of the things that we determined were important in our strategic plan. And that was in the sound planning, innovation, and best practices categories of improving operational efficiency, resiliency, reliability, and defining, developing, and implementing best practices. So what you see here in this picture is one PLC and a bunch of input and output cards. If that one PLC fails, that's a single point of failure that could theoretically take down Romer until operators can respond. So the way a lot of districts mitigate that is they have a second redundant PLC, and that's what you see right below there. So that's redundancy, that's resiliency, that's rubber meeting the road or water meeting the pipes when we talk about resiliency and those things. Right next to it, you see a fiber optic patch panel. They're redundant. There's one right next to the other, so that if the networking relays go down or if a backhoe for some reason pulls a conduit and pulls one of those communication lines, we have a way to have a backup and still communicate and control the system. So this is a huge upgrade that I think kind of goes unnoticed, and these control cabinets is what helps us operate Romer so effectively.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, if you go back.
Back.
So, what happens if there's a power outage? How is it backed up, or how do we keep it on?
So this specific panel has an uninterruptible power supply. So the control cabinet will power itself, typically for a number of hours, but then the entire plant, and I have another slide here that we're going to talk about, is going to be powered by a backup generator, diesel generator.
Okay. The only reason why I ask, because I know that Director Jenkins has had that issue where the power's off for days, right?
2 days, yes.
2
2 and a
days.
half, 3 days, yeah. In my neighborhood, it happened.
So just wondering to see how does that affect the facility?
So a big component of this project was installing a larger diesel backup generator that can run the entire plant if we do lose imported power from Edison. I have some pictures of that. We'll get
Thank you.
that is, yeah. Actually, I can come back to it if you want to talk about it now. This is the pictures of the generator getting installed. And so just to install the generator, it's not like we plop it down. We had to relocate a transformer. The generator is sitting behind it. This is the generator getting pulled off the truck and placed in its final resting location. And then there's going to be a sound enclosure that goes around the whole thing.
So Rocky, something very simple.
Just drop it in and turn
Yeah.
it on. What also went along with this generator was an upgrade of the power service from Edison. We have increased electrical loads, so that's why we had to relocate the transformer and add some additional switchgear to our main power feed. And so that falls in line with our strategic goal of sound planning, innovation, and best practices. And then also the health, safety, and regulatory compliance of developing and implementing a robust emergency preparedness plan. Backup power is a very important part of our emergency preparedness plan. And that generator helps us do that.
Rocky, that generator, that'll run the whole plant or 2/3 of the plant?
Pretty sure it's a whole plant.
So like almost 22 MGD.
As an operator, when I'm on backup power, I start turning off lights and just trying to save everything. But our
Approximately,
operators are really good.
back to Director Garcia's question, approximately how long does that backup generator, if there was zero power for a week, how long would it work?
So it's all about fuel storage at that point. And I forget how many hours we said
Okay.
we were going to run, but typically it's 24 or 48 hours. But we're trying to make sure that we have contracts in place to get diesel fuel delivered to the site as needed.
Yeah, keep the diesel coming and we can go,
Yeah, as long as
kind of
the
go forever.
truck show up,
Bad
yeah,
math.
sure. Yeah, there you go.
One last question. Sorry for all the questions.
Oh, no.
But across the street, we're generating electricity right in that building.
Not
Hydro?
across the street, but yeah, on site at the
Is it on
hydroelectric
site?
station.
How do we get credit for that? I know that there's that building, right, that has a Edison building.
The
That,
hydroelectric?
yeah, the hydroelectric.
Yeah, hydro, it's not across the street, but it's up the road a little bit.
Oh, I thought it was across the street.
That's a diversion structure.
Okay, me bad. So,
Yes.
all right, just wondering like how we could, if we got credit for that, or is that like get put into this, or is that something completely separate?
I think Linda remembers when that got installed, but I think typically that's offsetting our power usage right now. So if we used a megawatt of power and that generated 200 kilowatts, it would offset our bill. But Linda might be able to speak better to that than me. I don't want to put you on the spot.
So the Moore State Project water that goes through the hydro plant, it offsets the power that we use at the Romer. That's correct.
So I don't think we're getting credit. We're just reducing our bill.
Correct.
And a little nuance to that, if we do go on diesel backup generators, that breaker to the hydroelectric station typically stays open and we don't rely on that power.
Bless you.
Going back, so now we're talking about the influent pump station construction progress. Here in these pictures, you can see the pumps getting installed on their pedestals into their cans. You can see the pipe, the header being installed. You can see the connecting valving, check valves, and piping getting installed to the main header. And then ultimately, all of these pumps are going to connect up to this main header. So this is a good example of repairing and replacing our aging infrastructure. And this is going to back up our current influent pump station. And then there's just some general road frontage construction photos here. You can see that we're using kind of native drought-tolerant plants and landscaping design. We're also widening the road, adding a turning lane to improve safety, and then some local vegetation here on the corner of Cedar and Riverside. This was a very unique shutdown that had to take place. I just wanted to share this with the board to talk about the complexities of working in a live treatment plant. So this was the filter effluent pipeline going to the UV disinfection system, and there's just not a lot of space down here. There's a cement ledge walkway right above here, and right past this it goes into the UV station. So typically when you want to install a T, you would cut the pipe, weld on some flanges, and then throw a T in there. And there's just not enough space to do that in here. So the contractor came up with a creative solution of creating this metal saddle that had to be welded onto this pipe in place. And so it was a shutdown that took down the entire plant. They put the saddle over the top of it, and there was a welder on this side and then on the inside of the pipe that climbed through here and welded this whole pipeline together and then painted it and coated it for corrosion protection. This is just one example of working inside a treatment plant and how hard that can be. And then I think I got the UV disinfection system next. This is one of the exciting upgrades for me when we talk about energy efficiencies. These new reactor vessels here are the latest and greatest in-vessel UV disinfection systems from Trojan Systems. And so these systems are in place of what was there before. They treat the additional 7.2 MGD without creating new pipes, and they also do it with greater energy efficiency. So we're treating more water for less energy with the way that they constructed these new systems and the new ballasts that exist in these control cabinets here. And so this is falls into a couple strategic plan categories of sound planning, innovation, and best practices by improving operational efficiency, resiliency, and reliability. And it also helps with our energy alternatives analysis. And then anytime you're talking disinfection, that falls into the larger category of health, safety, and regulatory compliance. And we already went over the generator. And then my last slide here is some discussions and questions, but I also wanted to highlight a couple other goals that don't show up in these pictures of being an exemplary employer, of attracting and retaining high-performance employees. Projects like this where we install new equipment, people get drawn to that, operators want to operate it, so I think that's a big benefit to a project like this. It's helping to foster a one-district team collaboration. Naturally, these projects brings engineering together, it brings operations together. With the financing that we got from the low-interest SRF loan, we're working with finance. Just naturally, these projects brings teams together. And then naturally, we empower employees to make decisions for a large project like this, and that cultivates and empowers a supportive culture. And with that, I would like to take any questions or have a discussion.
Any questions? Yeah.
When you said UV for that project, how much percentage is UV used versus chlorinization?
They're used in series, so we have to use both. I don't know if that's a great way to answer your question. We use both, but the chlorine residual or the chlorine demand is a lot less because we do UV disinfection ahead of the chlorine addition.
Okay.
And by permit, we have to do both.
Okay.
Are there anything's going to be is there going to be any solar usage there? Any solar energy provided, or?
We don't have any solar planned on the project right now.
Okay.
But with the new larger switchgear, we have space if we want to do something like that.
That's a great idea, though.
Okay.
That's a great idea. I had thank you for the presentation. I think you did.
Thanks.
You knocked it out of the park. I didn't realize until you showed the construction on how challenging to put a T, and I'm sure that was a very unique job and possibly dangerous as well. I was watching how huge that is, and you had people inside as well.
Yeah.
Well done. I had two questions right now. Is that on the control? We have a new control center. Is it upgraded control system?
Mm-hmm.
And is that remotely powered as well, or remotely operated?
Yeah, so one of the nice benefits of the project is that their operators are going to have remote access to the plant control system.
And I'm sure you looked at it. My first thing was a security issue, like, you know, when, I don't know
Yeah.
how that stuff happens.
There's
but I'm sure-
firewalls
Yeah,
and
okay.
virtual private network logins and dual
Great.
credential login stuff. It's a little over my head, but
Yeah, me too. And then our administration building, obviously you mentioned on how people are having their laptops possibly on microwave ovens and things like that. How are we going to outgrow our admin building is my concern right now, right? Maybe we should have thought of a second one or possibly for further growth. I'm sure you might have ideas on that right now. Or you're changing your office.
yeah, I mean, I think this is as large as Romer is going to get from a treatment capacity perspective. But more generally along the lines that you're talking about, the district's undertaking the facilities master plan where we're trying to account for future employee growth and office space and things like that. But this space already has a little bit of growth built into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's 1 or 2 extra cubicle spaces for.
That's great.
People.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rocky, very much.
Thank you very
Any
much.
other questions?
I maybe add a comment about, you know, efficient control systems. That's really what allows us to increase the capacity of this plant by 50%. But we're going to staff it with the same number of people. So efficient operations, and I think funner jobs.
Oh,
I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I really like how you incorporated the work plan commitments and the work plans and how we're accomplishing that. So I think that you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
well done, Rocky.
Good
Thank you.
job.
Okay, so we'll go forward now. Next, we have the consent calendar, and I know we already have
Yes.
one issue.
We would request, Mr. Vice President, that we pull amendment to the employment agreement. The Brown Act requires that contracts or amendments dealing with the general manager's position be taken as part of the action calendar. So if we can just pull that item and then take it after the rest of the consent calendar is approved.
Very good. Are we okay with that for pulling it? Any negative? No? Okay, so knowing that's being pulled, would someone like to approve the motion of the consent calendar with the amended version?
I'll approve.
I got a first, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Director Garcia, and Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Thank you. Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Garcia,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins.
Yes.
That passes 401. Thank you.
Great. On to business matters. Our business item is contracts with Merlin.
So
Oh,
I'm
excuse
sorry,
me.
this would be the appropriate time to take the pulled consent calendar item.
Yes, I apologize. Yes,
That's okay.
can we please pull the number 2 consent calendar item?
Yep. So it was pulled and the balance of the consent calendar was approved. So now would be the time to take up that item that I
Oh,
pulled, that we
Take up
requested.
the approval of.
The third amendment to the general manager's agreement that was pulled from consent. And any items that are pulled from consent are then considered separately. So this would be the time we'd recommend that we consider that item.
Oh, okay, so now we'd like to consider the
Yes.
pulled item
Correct.
and ask for a motion.
Well,
Oh.
let me give it a little bit of, so
Yeah, thank you.
the Brown Act requires that certain basic disclosures be made about the terms of any amendment or agreement involving the chief executive, in this case, the general manager. So I'll simply refer to the staff report for those key elements. The staff report explains that the third amendment to the employment agreement would call for a compensation of $349,253. That salary reflects an increase based on the class and comp study, with the base amount of $331,053 being retroactive to July 1, 2024. The salary further includes an additional amount of $700 per pay period, or $18,200 annually, which the employee has elected to receive as an additional base pay in lieu of vehicle allowance. And then finally, this recommendation includes in the third amendment that the employee shall receive a one-time a performance award in the amount of $15,225 for the successful completion of goals and objectives, as previously discussed in his work performance evaluation. So with those basic elements disclosed, the requested action, which can be taken all at one time, is 1, to approve the amendment to the general manager's at-will agreement that reflects the inclusion of the items that I've just described. Also include the award of meritorious one-time compensation as a performance award. And 3, to approve the salary schedule reflecting the salary adjustment effective March 20, 2025. So that would be the requested motion at this time.
Thank you, Council. So at this time, anyone would like to make a motion for the item regards to the general manager and the new numbers and
The 3 requested actions can be
requested
taken
actions,
as part of
please.
one motion.
Just to clarify, the 3 requested action items are only, they're effective and will be revisited when? Is it just a 1-year term? And then this comes back for consideration for a different request?
So this is the time, based on the change in the and classification study and various other things, this is the time for this year to consider a 3rd amendment to the general manager's agreement. The contract does call for an annual review of the general manager, at which time in the future you can or cannot consider future amendments. So this is just for this period of time and this evaluation. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I motion to accept the pulled item for approval of 3rd amendment of the employment agreement and the requested action items as listed in the staff report.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
And with that, Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. Director Moore?
Yes.
Director Bennett?
Yes.
Director Garcia?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
That passes 401. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. All right, on to business items. We have contracts with Merlin Johnson Construction and Webb and Associates for Zone 7 through 18 transmission main. Rocky, will you please give that report?
Thanks again. So our Zone 7 pressure zone is up in our northern service area. It's fed by our Zone 6, and it's our second northernmost, our highest pressure zone, sorry. During our last water master plan, the need for increased capacity to Zone 7 was identified. And the pathways to get to the Zone 7 reservoirs, all of them from Zone 6, cross the 15 freeway. Crossing freeways and railroads are always challenging projects. So this project was identified as a need to increase our system capacity going from Zone 6 to Zone 7. Whenever you're crossing a freeway or a railroad, traditional construction techniques are usually not the preferred path. So trenchless construction techniques are typically used in those. In this case, we're proposing a jack and bore construction activity to cross the 15 freeway near Lytle Creek and Citrus Avenue. This is just north of Duncan Canyon. To do this, the district engaged Albert A. Webb and Associates to prepare a request for bids package. That request for bids was posted on Planet Bids to our approved contractors list. Staff received 2 bids in response to that RFB. During the bid period, following a job walk with the prospective bidders, it was identified that a larger casing size for the jack and bore might be desirable for a project in this area. The geology in this area includes a lot of large grain soils intermixed with large boulders. And when you're doing trenchless construction technologies, there's always a risk when you're underground that you're going to encounter things that you don't know are there. And boulders are one of those things with jack and bore that's always a pretty large risk. So by increasing the casing size from 30 to 36 inch, the district staff and the engineer record felt like that was a reasonable size increase to accommodate boulders that could be up to 18 inches in diameter. But you can always go larger, and it's just game of how much risk versus added cost does an activity like that take. After that addendum was issued, bids were received. Merlin Johnson Construction was the low bidder at $1,329,475. The bid was consistent with the other bid received. It was slightly higher than the engineer's estimate, but the engineer's estimate did include a smaller casing size before the addendum was issued. Staff also requested that Albert A. Webb, the design engineer, provide a proposal to perform engineering services during construction. The requested engineering services included a request for information reviews from the contractor, request for deviation development. So if a request for information results in a deviation from the plans, the engineer of record would do that and sign off on it. They would also respond to design intent inquiries. And then the biggest activity that Webb would be performing with the proposed services is ground surface monitoring along the 15 freeway. Since we're jacking and boring underneath the 15 freeway, Caltrans is obviously very cautious of that. One of the permit conditions that we received from them is that we would perform near continuous monitoring of the ground surface elevation along the 15 freeway, along our route, or along our alignment. And the intent of that is to make sure that our activities aren't causing the freeway to sag or create a traffic hazard. So they'll be performing those services throughout the entire construction activity. For all of those services, Albert A. Webb proposed a fee of $84,500. I want to take a quick second with the board just to say that jack and bore projects always have an inherent risk when we're talking about finding boulders. So staff has worked with Merlin Johnson, and we've developed a risk mitigation strategy to try to identify if we do need to increase the casing size any larger in case we encounter larger boulders. So what we're going to do is work with the contractor when we dig the receiving and pushing pits for the jack and bore activities to categorize and inventory the types of subterranean boulders and rocks that we encounter. And if we encounter rocks that are larger than we think we can pass through the 36-inch casing, we're going to be looking at a change order to increase that casing size. And that would be a change order that we would bring to the board to discuss further. So I just want to let the board know that there's a chance that that may happen. But we're hoping that the due diligence we did during the design period and bid period that were sufficient. And with that, staff is recommending that the board authorize the general manager to award the contract to Merlin Johnson to construct the 650 linear feet of pipe underneath the 15 freeway for a construction amount of $1,329,475. And then also approve the award of a professional services agreement and a task order to Albert A. Webb and Associates for the $84,500. And then authorize the general manager to execute necessary documents for both of those agreements. And with that, I'd like to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're awarding two different contracts,
Yes, for the same project, yes.
and one is for the actual construction of the pipeline, and the 84,000. I'm sorry, is for what again?
It's for the design engineer to respond to inquiries from the contractor during construction. So typically, contractors issue requests for information that the engineer of record has to respond to. So it's trying to see if they can use a certain type of pipe or if the casing that they're proposing to use meets the specifications of the design.
So my question would be, for $1,329,000, Merlin Johnson still needs a subcontractor to give him information?
They're not a subcontractor. It's the engineer that validates what Merlin Johnson is proposing meets the design intent that the engineer originally prepared in the bid package.
I'm sorry, I'm just confused as to why, I'm confused with what the professional agreement is for Albert Webb.
So the vast majority of it is the monitoring of the ground surface on the 15 freeway. That's $44,000 of it, I believe. The other part of it is just coordination with the contractor to make sure that what they're doing meets the design intent that the engineer tried to put down on paper. And that's typical for every construction project. There's an engineer who approves what the contractors are proposing.
It's like construction management assistance with specialized services that are not within the district's capabilities itself.
So Albert Webb is for example, the licensed engineer, and then
Yes.
Johnson Construction is just implementing the plans that were designed by Albert Webb?
Contractor. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Assistance, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that you also shared about the hazards and potential hazards, and that I know your team will do the due diligence, making sure it happens.
But now I'm curious, how deep is that pipeline underneath the 15 freeway?
To the top of pipe, it's about 9 feet from ground surface.
That's it?
On the top of it, and then it goes further, whatever the.
No, okay, well, let me make it more simplified question. If I'm standing on the 15 freeway, how deep is that pipeline gonna be?
The top of pipe to the 36-inch pipe is 9 feet, so the bottom of pipe would be 12 feet below you, or bottom of casing.
And I must not get it today.
So if you stand on it, you're at 9 feet, and at the bottom of it's 12 feet.
So that's only 9 feet.
Yeah, 9 feet below.
Yeah.
Well, dug deeper, it has to dug at least 15 or so, I guess.
But you're drilling horizontally, so
Yeah,
And-
that's the big challenge.
yeah,
And
that's,
don't move the freeway.
Yeah.
We don't want a
Or
bump in
sink
the
it.
freeway.
or sink it, yeah.
yeah. And so my question is, why is it not deeper? I'm just wondering.
Deeper's more expensive, and it aligns with our existing pipeline alignments. Typical.
Is that the
ground-
standard, like just 9 feet?
It all depends on the ground surface, but anything over 4 feet in normal roadways like this, we can cover it and protect it from roadway traffic and things like that. So, 9 feet's not crazy deep. It's not very shallow either.
That's probably as prescribed, required by Caltrans engineers.
They have a minimum cover that we are meeting. I don't remember what their exact minimum cover was though.
But it's, yeah.
Just one last question, because I'm curious now. Do you guys put like some type of like I forgot the word right now, but like so that there is no subsidence that occurs? You know, those boulders are pretty big, and I'm sure they're going to cause some big voids.
So the jack and bore construction technique is kind of meant to try to mitigate a lot of that. If there is a void that gets noticed on the outside of the casings, there's I think they call them eyelets, but you can inject grout between the casing and the native soil to fill any voids once you've passed it. And so if there was a void that we feel like we observed, there's ways to inject
Okay.
grout.
That's very interesting. Okay, thank you.
And the segments, are they 10-foot segments? Do we know?
I think we're leaving that up to Merlin to figure out. So each segment they
okay.
push,
Yeah.
they have to weld on the next segment and then push the next one. And so it's how big of a jack and bore pit do you want?
So maybe you bore 10 feet and then you basically push the pipe in and weld it, and then you do another 10 feet. And
Yeah.
It's almost like direct push, but
Yeah.
vertically.
yeah, horizontal
I mean horizontal. Direct push
jacking of
really.
the pipe. Push it in there.
It's gonna be a real big drill bit with possibly refusal.
Drill bit moves with
Yeah, yeah.
with the excavation, and
I
then
t-
you pull it out at the end. If all goes well, don't get stuck in the middle.
What's the time frame on this?
The construction duration is expected to be 180 days. Obviously, if we encounter boulders, we have to increase the casing size. That there might be a
Thank you.
schedule impact to that.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay. Any other questions? We'll move forward. At this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendations. Do I have a motion?
A motion to pass staff recommendation for contract with Merlin Johnson Construction and Webb and Associates for Zone 7, 18 transmission main.
And I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Madam Secretary?
Thank you. That second was from Director Bennett.
Director Bennett.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Garcia,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins.
Yes.
That passes 401. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now we're coming towards, it's time for reports. Does anyone have any committee reports at this time?
So I have the Finance Committee report. We had a meeting on March 10th. We talked about the iPay Smart. Staff is continuing to work towards a July 1st implementation date with significant public outreach leading up to that date. We're also working on a water rate study. We met with Raftelis on revisions to the water rate study in response to comments that they received from the initial board workshop. We're looking to have another discussion regarding the rate study with the board in early May. In regards to customer service, we have multiple staff members out on temporary. So we have hired staff on a temporary basis with the temp agency to provide support. We expect to backfill these positions in the next 2 months. And staff presented the proposal from the engineering department to reclassify the development coordinator 3 to development services supervisor. This will fill in the needs of the department, the district, and especially to meet the needs of our customers. The fiscal impact will be less than $500 for the remaining of the fiscal year. This item was on the agenda earlier tonight. And that was all we talked about. Thank you.
Any other board reports, committee reports?
HR. Talked about recruitment efforts, and the staff presented a new classification that was developed for development services supervisor. The purpose of the position is to have single point supervisor or accountability to drive efficiency, effectiveness, and maintain high service standards. And staff has been working diligently to finalize the HR policies and procedures. The red line version and proposed updates and edits improvements will be presented at the next Human Resources Committee next month. We submitted various applications for AQUA, JPIA, SDRMA, and CIRA to obtain employment practice liability insurance, or EPLI. Staff will be meeting with AQUA and JPII to discuss important changes to the district that the district has made in the last year and a half to support our efforts to rejoin the insurance pool. HR is working together with finance to plan a customer service training that includes phone etiquette, customer surveys, improving and streamlining our internal processes to improve customer service and service efficiency. These are the current items that were identified on the work plans.
Thank you. Any other board reports? I have one. I sent on a committee report with President Young for the policy committee. The committee received an update on proposed conflict of interest policy, which includes changes to job titles after the completion of the class and comp study. This policy is currently under review with the FPPC. Once this is approved, it will be presented to the HR committee before it comes to us for further review and approval. And there was also a general discussion on some of the upcoming policies, which include sponsorships and donation policies, and furthermore, the HR policies and procedures. That's the end of my committee report. And next will be board member reports. Any general board member reports from anyone?
On March the 7th and 8th, I attended the WELL conference. Very informative, met individuals, and I plan on taking some classes from there.
Awesome. That's awesome. Nothing? Okay. And finally, our next will be general manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I have just a couple of quick updates, staffing and recruitments. The district's been putting out a lot of support letters. Actually, Socorro is going to cover that a little further in the agenda. Went to the Rialto meet and greet, And, well, let me start off with staffing and recruitments. Chief Financial Officer, we are negotiating contract items with our selected candidate, and we're really hoping to have that person on board by April 15th. For senior engineer, our new senior engineer is Leo Chan, coming to us from the city of Glendale, and he started on Monday.
Awesome.
Customer service lead, we completed 10 interviews yesterday. Lots of great competition in there, and we're in the selection process. Plan to make a decision next week on that. Lead water treatment operator, these are 2 internal positions. Interview scheduled for March 31st with 4 candidates, all internal candidates. Lead water distribution operator, interview scheduled for March 24th with 3 external candidates and 2 internal candidates actually for lead water distribution operator. For water conservation specialist, interviews are scheduled for March 26th and 8 external candidates and 1 internal. Finally, for public outreach and government affairs, Rep 1, that position posted March 11th, and that will post until March 28th. So looking forward to that. Getting POGA back to full power. I did attend the City of Rialto meet and greet for the new city manager, Tanya Williams. Linda joined me, and directors Moore and Bennett and Vice President Jenkins were there as well. And Joe Baca Sr. was there, Joe Baca Jr. was there. We talked to some board members, a lot of folks there to meet and greet, and also with City of Rialto staff members. Really looking forward to working with the new city manager, of course, the new mayor, the new city council, and we're already seeing more interaction with city staff on a number of things, including fire readiness, mutual aid agreements, etc. So off to a great start there. And then I wanted to mention our JPIA nominations process coming up. We had one item on the board agenda a time or 2 ago that we pulled because we were expecting, we thought we might get some more requests, and we have. So Haiti actually has an update on that for us.
Good evening. So since the last presentation of the nomination, we've received 3 requests for support for Aqua JPIA Executive Committee. One is a nomination for T. Milford Harrison, and he's from San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District. And the next one is for Melody McDonald. And she is the current incumbent in that seat. And then the third letter of support was for Randall Reed, who is from Cucamonga Valley Water District. So we will be preparing a staff report review and provide the 3 nominees. It'll come back to you on April 3rd, and the selected individual needs to have the resolution back to the organization by April 12th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Haiti, and that's all for me.
And legal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just wanted to mention a recent bill that was went into effect the first of the year. It's SB 790, and it deals with the Public Records Act. Public contracts for goods and services from a public agency are subject to disclosure as a public record. There have been some cases over the years where a vendor has submitted a contract to a public agency and said it cannot be disclosed because it includes a trade secret. And there are exceptions under the Public Records Act for trade secrets, but that doesn't mean you can label everything in a contract as a trade secret. The other thing that is often mentioned for that would be the price structure, to say, I'm in a private business. If my price structure gets out, then that would be unfair to because my competitors would know what my price structure is. That may all be true, but because a vendor is doing work with a public agency, that is still a public record that is subject to disclosure. So SB 790 just makes a clarification of existing law that contracts for goods and services, including price and terms of payment, are contracts and are public records that must be disclosed upon request. The advice that I'm giving to clients is, don't ask for or accept information that a bidder considers to be a trade secret. It's very rare that that would be something that would be absolutely required, perhaps in some specialized work. But this bill makes it clear that going forward, unless there's a very limited exceptions, the contracts themselves are subject to disclosure. So that's my report.
Thank you. And next is POGA.
Good evening, Vice President Jenkins, members of the board, members of staff, and public. This last 2 weeks, we've been very, very busy. And so as a team, we're going to tag team this presentation tonight. So I want to invite Isabel Medina, Public Outreach and Government Affairs Rep 1.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. To start off my presentation, on Friday, board and staff attended the grand opening in Bloomington. We were gifted this beautiful plaque for being a proud supporter of the Bloomington Little League. We also tabled the event where we passed out these stadium cushions, and they were a huge hit. We are so proud to be the official water provider of Bloomington Little League, and we cannot wait for this upcoming season. As part of our education initiatives, as identified in the strategic plan, the POGA team had the opportunity to present to second graders at Kodiak Elementary classroom. We offered a hands-on activity where the students were able to pot succulents while learning about its important water-saving properties. We also taught them little water-saving techniques and had them take the water pledge with Creek. They absolutely loved it, and we love planting that seed at such a young age. We can't wait to continue our efforts with the surrounding school districts. More education. The POGA team also had the opportunity to tour the wetlands at the Inland Empire Utilities Agency, where we had the opportunity to partake in one of their most popular hands-on activities called Enviroscape. As we work on building our education program, it's so important to look at our partners to see what works for them and see if we can tailor it to our district. And that was the goal of us touring the wetlands, and it was an amazing experience for our whole team. Before I pass it on to Socorro, any questions on these 3 events?
Looks like you guys had a lot of fun.
We did.
That's good.
Earlier this week, Myrto Harley, our senior POGA, represented WVOD at the Hospitality Water and Energy Efficiency Training. This training, organized by CalWEP, SoCal Gas, and other local retailers, aimed to raise awareness about water conservation within local hotels. These efforts align with California's Way of Life conservation regulations, continue to push for sustainable water use. Since our last board of directors meeting, we have given out 60 cases of water to Bloomington Little League and Rialto Little League. As you see, there's a photo from our Bloomington Little League pickup. The bear showed up to pick up the waters.
Who's the bear?
I believe it's Teresa.
Oh.
I think, was it Teresa? Yeah.
That's their mascot?
Yeah, the mascot.
Okay.
Bloomington Little League. April's around the corner. As you see, it's a very busy time in the POGA department, April and May. So we'll be at different events throughout the community. So we hope to see you there, as well as the rest of the community members. And we're also, to save the dates, for Saturday, April 12th, we'll be hosting a workshop here at this district. And then on May 3rd, we'll be co-hosting one with Bloomington, a Mother's Day cycling workshop. The Public Outreach and Government Affairs team has been proactively tracking and engaging with legislative initiatives, ensuring our efforts align with the direction established by the Board of Directors in its legislative principles adopted earlier this year. The first bill that I want to bring to attention is Assembly Bill 259 Rubio, sponsored by CSDA. You might have heard it during the Special District Center. This would remove the sunset clause that expires this year on changes made by the Brown Act by Assembly Bill 2449 Rubio. These changes allow board members to participate remotely in meetings due to just cause or emergency circumstances. As you see, there's a recommendation there as well as recommendation by our lobbyists, and the link to the WVWD legislative principles. The next bill is SB 394, Enhanced Penalties for Water Theft from Fire Hydrants. This bill is co-sponsored by Aqua and allows local water agencies to create ordinances with stronger penalties for water theft through unauthorized fire hydrant connections. It also enables utilities to take legal action for damages against anyone who tampers with or steals water from fire hydrants. And again, the recommendation is to support this bill, and then links to our legislative principles. SB 532, the Water Rate Assistance Program. This bill aims to establish a low-income water rate assistance program in California. The bill will authorize retail agencies to create this program. Again, this aligns to local control, and this bill is sponsored by CMUA. And then I'm going to skip on that one because Isabel will talk on SB 72. But a bill I want to bring to attention is the Nitrate and Arsenic in Drinking Water Act. This bill will be reintroduced by Congressman Torres and Congressman Valadao as a bipartisan bill. And this bill would, it was last year West Valley supported this bill. So following our legislative principles, we would send a copy of support to both authors, our delegation, and engage with Aqua and CSDA on the federal level regarding these bills.
Now back to one of my favorite bills. SB 72 is a reintroduction of SB 366, which was previously supported by our bill. The main proponents of this bill is to modernize the California Water Plan so that we are prepared for any future drought occurrences or natural disaster. The bill sets to do this by setting a California water supply goal that the California state must meet. And in order to do this, it promotes regional collaboration in order to achieve this goal. This bill passed unanimously, or SB 366 passed unanimously in the last session, but was ultimately vetoed by the government due to some budget concerns. SB 72 answers those budget concerns, but it's initially the same bill. This bill remains a very, very favored bill in the water agency. I'm still next. And next up, a grants update. So before I get into our grants timeline, I just want to give you guys some insights on the internal grants planning we've been doing. At the end of January, staff met and we finalized our 2025 project priority list. Once that was set in stone, we sent that over to our state lobbyist, who was able to identify some upcoming funding opportunities. With that, we met with our state lobbyists on March 12th, and they came up with a grants timeline for us. The first proponent of that timeline is to support Prop funding. If you recall, the board supported Prop 4 that was on the 2024 ballot, and it passed. Something that's been brought up in the state is that the budget was planned prior to the California wildfires. So the governor will be bringing the budget back in his May revised budget. We're hoping to see some more funding for fire suppression. On our end, we're able to send support letters to the proper committees and to the governor's office. The next step on our grants timeline is, regardless of how the Prop 4 allocations turn out, we still continue to work with the State Water Resource Control Board and the Department of Water Resources to advocate for our funding needs. As we continue this process, we will make sure on our Prop 4 efforts. Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. Your team's doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work. I mean,
thank you so much.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Just want to let you know.
The public outreach staff will provide a comprehensive bill summary of tonight's bills and copies of the letters of support to the board of directors. We look forward to continuing our proactive engagement throughout this fast-paced legislative session. I do want to bring it to attention that on Monday, the POGA team did submit 3 appropriations requests for FY26 through the office of Congressman Aguilar. That includes 3 projects that we we were advocating in DC for SCADA, emergency generators, and water storage. Although the future is kind of uncertain right now on the federal side, we will continue to work with our federal lobbyists and federal delegation on advocating for these projects. Any other questions?
Any questions?
No, great job. Thank you guys for all you do. Over the last couple of years, you guys have just blossomed and just took off, and it's just it's awesome to see. You're out in the community. I hear about it when I go here and there. It's amazing. It's just amazing. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. And moving forward, Board Secretary's report.
Thank you, Vice President Jenkins. I do have a really quick update to give you all, which is a follow-up to the approval of the records retention schedule that we started last year. As a follow-up to that, there was discussions held with our executive management team that a selection of liaisons per department. There was training that was held via Zoom and in person with a consultant that we'd brought in that has 30 years experience in working with records management, and records programs. And we developed a plan to have that consultant come in and work with the departments specifically to assess and to start working on trying to put our arms around records, where we hold records, and in some cases trying to figure out where records have been held for sometimes decades. So we were able to find those. We identified no less than 13 different locations in the various facilities where there are closets, vaults, cabinets that were left by folks that have left, where we kind of started digging in, and thankfully the staff was motivated to assist, and we did quite a bit of work so far in this first round. So just a few pictures to kind of show you some of the areas that were identified and the areas that we went through. The consultant came in and worked with our engineering department liaisons, finance liaisons, and operations. And in some cases, we have liaisons for each division because there's so much work and so many records. So these are kind of the things that we encountered, and things that we needed to go through. And staff was very gracious in assisting our consultant, that is Diane Gladwell, our consultant that we worked with. And just to kind of show you, as a result, we had all these boxes that came out that were indexed, that were identified, that were logged, that staff helped with. We filled part of a shipping container that we brought in specifically for storing records that eventually will be destroyed, started filling that container with boxes that were identified and logged. This is kind of to show you that our folks really rolled up their sleeves to start helping in this effort. And this is finance. And just to give you some numbers, just in this first phase, and this very small amount of work that was done in engineering, still a lot to do. There are 15 boxes that were identified for potential destruction. In operations, 34 boxes. And in finance, 50. So this is just a small sliver of work that's going to be done. We have a next phase that's going to be coming up where the consultant's going to come back to these departments to finish some of that work. And again, this consultant is actually training our staff in learning how to do what she does so that we can continue the work as part of our program. The next phase of the records retention program will be to bring in a company that will start scanning the documents that need to be scanned, and then we'll develop an electronic document management system. So have a company come in the next fiscal year to kind of help us with everything digitally. So a lot of work that's being done, all in collaborating with staff and with the executive management team. I do want to mention that this attempts to address the strategic plan goal to apply sound planning, innovation, and best practice to foster one district team collaboration, provide easy and transparent access to public records, and again, the next phase will attempt to address also the modernization of our facilities. So very excited, a lot of work that's being done, a lot of momentum being built on this, and I just want to thank the staff and executive team for their support. Also, that's right, 9 boxes of historic significant documents that were found also. So excited to provide that to our historian that we're going to be working with. And
What does that mean? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
What's
there
historic?
are a lot of historic documents, like
Are there papyrus?
bonds from 1939 or something like that. There was Yeah, a lot of different things that are of historic significance that we'll
Okay.
be able to go through and pull. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. So any questions related to that?
Any questions?
No. No. I've done record storage for a couple of years. I understand.
All right. With
Pretty
that being
complex.
said, I
Thank
now
you.
adjourn this meeting.
Oh,
at-
wait, we have
oh.
one, we have the calendar review
forgive me,
really
forgive
quick,
me.
just to kind of give
I
you
got ahead of
what's
things.
coming up, that's okay. We do have, the Assemblymember Garcia's open house is coming up on Friday,
Tomorrow, yeah.
tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I've got Dan, Esteban, and Kelvin that are gonna be attending.
Mm-hmm.
External Affairs is gonna be Monday, Engineering and Operations will be Thursday. You'll be getting that email shortly with the agenda packets. Do want to mention Safety and Technology for next month is going to be canceled because CMUA is going to be happening from the 6th through the 8th.
Okay.
HR and Policy Committee is coming up, and again, our regular meeting on the 3rd. The Valley Summit, which Director Velasquez had mentioned, is going to be from the 10th and 11th. You're registered for that, those that have RSVP'd. A tour with Assemblymember Garcia is pending, but is potentially going to be on the 18th with a member of the Executive Committee and a member of the External Affairs Committee, as well as the CSDA Spring Leadership Academy in La Quinta. Also happening that same week would be a potential tour at Rancho with a member of the Executive Committee and a member of the External Affairs Committee. So busy month ahead. I'll be making sure that your calendars are reflected. And any questions, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, go ahead, Director Bennett.
Kelvin, I think, is being modest. He was letting speak on behalf of the supervisor. This offer you were made.
What?
The offer the supervisor, Joe Baca Jr.
Oh,
made to you today.
what did he offer us today?
District Attorney's Board.
Oh, yeah. That's yeah. We had a one-on-one with Joe Baca today. Joe Baca Jr. That's a couple of things. Just on the state of San Bernardino County. And one thing that he has suggested, there's it's a DA board, an ad hoc advisor committee that are comprised of citizens, and I think they have 3 openings or 2 openings.
One.
They only have 1.
And that was
I got it. But anyway, they meet every quarter to talk about some of the things that are going on in the community. So, just
Congratulations. That's
yeah.
awesome. Sounds like you picked the right man. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anything else?
Oh, there's
go
a
ahead.
new Rialto Unified School District has a new superintendent. Her name is Dr. Judy White. Judy White, very dynamic, comes with an impressive resume. She's been in the business about 40 years, and very, very well known. And I'm expecting some great things to happen in that district.
All right, then. Is there anyone else before? At this time, I'd like to say meeting's adjourned at 7:45.